Frank Kaler. Thanks for joining me. Well, the Federal Reserve is back in the inflation business. The Fed, with the blessing of the U.S. Treasury and the Obama administration, recently announced that they will again start inflating the money supply in hopes of staving off a sustained deflation. You might ask, why is everyone so fearful of deflation? Well, put simply, most government officials know how to deal with inflation. Actually, inflation is the political savior of an overspending country that finds itself deep in debt, as the U.S. is today. A country has 4 tools to retire their debt. They can raise taxes, cut spending, declare bankruptcy, or debase the currency through inflation. Now, they can use one or all of these except for bankruptcy, and of course bankruptcy is the most unpalatable of the 4. It would most likely mean the country would go through a gut-wrenching depression and be unable to borrow for the foreseeable future. Almost as unpalatable to politicians are spending cuts of any kind. Taking away something the electorate views as a right or an entitlement is akin to ending your political career. So raising taxes, well, that's somewhat more appealing, especially in countries where the majority of the voters don't pay taxes, or the increases apply primarily to those that the electorate perceives as the rich. The risk here is that if taxes are increased too much, it reduces the incentive to work, and tax revenues actually fall, and the economy goes into recession or depression. This will actually exacerbate the problem, meaning the country is going to have to increase borrowing to keep everything going without making any spending cuts. So that leaves us with inflation. A slow, chronic inflation is the most politically palatable way of reducing the debt in a manner that is somewhat unnoticeable to the electorate. Now, with inflation, the losers are the people and the institutions that own the debt, that loan the country the money, because the currency shrinks in value. For example, say you loan the government money by buying a $1,000 U.S. government bond that matures in 10 years. At the time you buy it, you could buy a fully loaded laptop or a round-trip ticket to London for that $1,000. Now, let's say the U.S. inflates its currency at about a 7% rate for the next 10 years. That would be about twice the normal rate of inflation, which has been 3.3% for the past 70 or 80 years. At the end of the 10 years, the bond matures. You get your $1,000 back. You go to buy a laptop. You can't buy a laptop for $1,000. They now sell for $2,000. That trip to London, that costs $2,000 too. Many people in this situation will think that prices of laptops and airline tickets have gone up. Actually, in real dollars, which are dollars adjusted for inflation, the cost of these items hasn't gone up a dime. It's the value of the dollar that's gone down, and in this case by 50% over 10 years. And the big winner is the U.S. government, because its multi-trillion-dollar debt has been chopped in half, again in real dollar terms, in 10 short years. They accomplished this without raising taxes or cutting spending, which is intoxicatingly appealing to politicians. Now, if the country slides into chronic deflation, similar to Japan, which has seen consumer prices fall up to 2% a year for 15 years, government revenues will fall, while the real value of its massive debt in real terms will grow, further stagnating future growth. It becomes a vicious cycle, which politicians have few, if any, tools to combat. That is why gradual inflation is the preferred medicine. When it's done well, citizens become like the proverbial frog that is cooked slowly in a pan of water where the temperature is gradually increased, rather than being frozen to death by deflation. In the end, well, neither outcome is good for the frog. Thanks for joining me.